Hey guys, today I want to talk a little bit about, is it the time to pay off your Philippine mortgage if you have a Philippine mortgage or any debt that you have in the Philippines? Now might be the time to pay it off. You know, with the rate going at about 57 pesos to the dollar right now, it might be time to sell some of the stuff you have at home to pay off your debt here, your mortgage here, because for what you're getting, we're used to like 52, 50, 48, 53, 54 usually to the dollar. That's usually the usual rate over here that we're used to. But right now it's at 57 and it could go higher, but we shouldn't get greedy. Okay, and I'm thinking it's probably going to go higher, but if I was a betting man, I would say probably, you know, take your money and run right now. If you have some dollars and you can exchange them over and you can pay off your Philippine mortgage or any Philippine debt that you have on a business or anything like that, now might be the time. Or if you just want to, if you have a lot of stuff back in the US right now, and you have stuff to sell off, let's say cars right now back in the US, you guys know with the chip issues and stuff like that, a lot of the used cars have actually gone up in value, which is unusual in the States. So that's happened. Also, a lot of places, the property values are still really high, and it still might be a good time to sell off your house in some areas and take that money and exchange it over to Philippine pesos and do all that now. If you want to liquidate some of your property, some guys are getting greedy and they're saying, no, I'm going to wait another year or two. Property always goes up, and it might in another year or two. I don't know, but I think we're in for some tough times ahead myself. I could be wrong, I could be right, I don't know. But from what I'm hearing, you know, from economists out there, they're saying Europe and the United States is definitely headed towards a downturn right now. And I think that the Philippine expats might be the beneficiaries of all that's going on back there, and we might actually benefit from that. So if we take our money from the US now and bring it over here, I think we're going to be way better off. Now, if you look at everything, there's a lot of people saying it. We've just had one expat tell me that he paid off his mortgage over here. He paid off his mortgage totally over here because he said, with the 57-to-1 ratio, how can you not beat that? You can't, because when he got the mortgage, I guess it was like 50-to-1 or whatever. So he's actually in a good position now, you know, that he's gaining a lot. He's gaining a lot of money by transferring money from the US over to here and paying things off. You know, who's to say what the future is going to hold? Here's what I think. These are just my thoughts. I was here back in the late 1980s, and I look at the Philippines now when I go through Manila and stuff like that, and I say, wow, this looks like an economic powerhouse now. When you walk the streets, yes, you still see poverty, but in some sections of Manila, you go to Makati and all these other places, it looks like you're downtown Hong Kong, or it looks like you're in some parts of Japan, the wealthy sections of Japan. I see the Philippines moving up in the future. They're taking out loans, and granted, that's not good at the present, but in the future, as long as they pay those loans off, I think they're going to be in a really good position economically, and they could be an economic powerhouse if they put that into the right infrastructure spots: water, electricity, railways, you know, all that stuff. And I see that the Philippines is upgrading their highways, their roads, and making more, you know, the better public transportation up in Manila. They're working on all this stuff, and that's going to make the Philippines better. As long as people can travel easier and more freely and less traffic and stuff like that, it's going to help the Philippines, because the Philippines has the manpower, and it's cheaper manpower, and it also brings these people up. Now, if I was to compare the people that I saw back in the late 1980s to the people now, I would say definitely the people have come up a little bit. Not a lot, but they have come up. I do notice that there's more middle class and upper middle class and wealthier people here now than there was back in the late 1980s. That's just my observation. Okay, that's something that I observed. Now, here's the thing. What does the future hold for the peso to the dollar? Some people are saying it might go 80-to-1. Is it worth taking the risk that might not happen? You know, whenever things start going up, there's always some people out there that go to the extreme, and they say, well, I think it's going to go to this, and I think it's going to go to that. And I usually don't pay too much attention to those people. You know, although it might be believable to some that we might get to 80 to 1 or 70 to 1 or something like that. I don't really think that that is going to go to that extreme. Could it go into the 60s or something like that? Yes, it's very possible. But if you wait till then and then it starts going down, your greed has hurt you, you know? So if you wanted to, yes, if you want to pay half of it or something like that, and you want to take the risk of doing the other, you haven't really gained that much because it goes back. But if you see it go back down to 56 or something like that, then maybe say, you know what? I bought my home when it was 50 to 1 or whatever. I'll take it at 56. I lost 1 peso, big deal. I'll exchange all my money and I'm still a little bit ahead. And you might want to come down with some sort of plan for doing this if you are thinking that way, that it's going to go higher, you know. And if it goes, maybe when it goes up to 58 or 59 or something like that, maybe sell a few more dollars and pay off your mortgage or your debt or whatever over here. It's certainly something to think about. Have some sort of a plan. And there's different approaches, obviously, that you could do. But if it was me, right now, with 57 being the highest it's ever been, 57.43, I think it was, or something like that, I think now is the time to just cash out and pay off whatever. But keep your emergency money in place. Do not use your emergency money to pay off anything over here. Do not use your emergency money to pay off debt, to pay off loans. Make sure you keep that intact. It might be worth it also, if you have that your emergency money in dollars, to switch it over into pesos. But you also risk that it's going to go up to 65 or 70 or 80. There's always that risk. But right now, with it being at the highest, I would say that risk is a lot lower that it's going to go up to those, unless the Philippines takes out a ton of loans from China or the US or whoever they're taking their loans up, Malaysia or Japan. You know, if they start taking out a ton of loans and all of a sudden that starts, you know, hurting the economy or whatever, then we could start seeing, you know, that it going up to, you know, 60, 70, 80 or whatever, hopefully not beyond, you know. And that's, granted, those hikes are great for expats. They're great for expats, but it really, really sucks for the average Filipino in the streets. We've talked about that many times about that, and it's really going to wreak havoc on them. The only good part is that with the benefits that we're getting, we can kind of help those people when we get our monthly pensions and salaries or whatever you're getting, or your money from cryptocurrency or YouTube or whatever. A lot of us are able to help the average Filipino here and help them financially, or giving them food or rice or whatever. You know, you can help them in a lot of ways with that excess money. But you should also take care of yourself also. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. A lot of guys over here have a big heart, and I see that with a lot of the expats over here. There's a group of expats over here. They have a really big heart and they want to help everybody. And then later on they find out that they went too far or something like that. And granted, I find most people that are very giving, they usually get it back. You know, they say like the law of karma or whatever. I think for me, I look at it as like that's God's blessing because you're helping people or whatever. That's my thoughts on it anyway. You know, but most people that give out money, they usually get it back. And that's great that you're doing it. And I still believe that everybody should be helping people out. And I help people out a lot myself. This channel helps out a ton of people. But make sure if you're getting these great gains and stuff like that, at least use a little bit of it to give back to the Philippines and the Philippine people, to help them out a little bit. Because you're gaining a lot by exchanging those dollars now. And it's well worth it. You know, but I did want to talk about that a little bit today. But I also want to talk a little bit about the world situation. And this world situation is almost like a huge benefit in some ways to Americans and to some Westerners too, in that we're getting these big, huge COLA raises on our Social Security and on our pensions, on our military pensions and some of our municipal pensions. We got these COLA raises built in. And the COLA raises that are coming up are going to be massive. We've also talked about that a little bit, you know, in the past too. But I want to step into this a little bit more, because I think that this next COLA raise is going to be massive for us expats over here, and it's going to bring a lot of prosperity to a lot of the expats that have just gotten over here and the older expats that are here. Unless you're on, you know, we always talk about the lower budgets, because if you're somebody that's getting $800 and you get, say, 8.3%, it's not a lot of money. But if you have $3,000 from Social Security and you get 8.3%, you're getting 3 times more than what the lower guy is getting, unfortunately. And that's just the way that pensions work, unfortunately, and Social Security works, and VA benefits, and you know, all that stuff. That's the way it works. But I think this next raise is going to be huge because, you know, here they are. Our rate of inflation compared to the U.S., our rate of inflation in the Philippines is much, much lower. Okay, it's much lower. Like they're saying it's. I mean, some people are saying it's 15, 20, 30%, and it depends on where you are in the country and stuff. But I think it's going to be about 8.5, 9.5% around. If I was to guess, you know, some people are saying 8.3, 8.6 or somewhere around there. I think we're probably going to get about 8.5% or whatever. But the inflation rate back there compared to here is a little bit different. I don't think it's as bad here, although it's bad. I don't think it's as bad as back in the U.S. So I think we're going to be the beneficiaries of that, because I think over here, manpower, the cost of manpower here keeps things way down. Although on food, it's still a little bit expensive and things like that, but some food items are cheaper over here and some are more expensive. Now, if you're on a rice diet and you're eating vegetables, frozen vegetables and stuff like that, I think, you know, you're doing pretty good, and you just throw a little bit of meat in with it or whatever. So over here, it's pretty easy to kind of change your diet around or whatever if you're trying to save money or whatever. But for the average Filipino, they manage to do it somehow, and Americans can do that too. But I think we're going to be great beneficiaries of what's going on in the U.S. right now in a lot of ways, especially with that exchange rate, because not only are we getting the cola, but we have the high exchange rates over here. So we've benefited to the point where I think we might actually be ahead of the game in a big way. We might be ahead of the game. And I think I wouldn't say it's substantial, but it's pretty good size, I think, because if it goes back to 50 to 1, we lost a lot. Okay, we've lost a lot. But, you know, the cola raise kind of helps us out a little bit with that. But I think we're going to stay between 55 and 60 now. I think that's going to be our new place to stay as far as the peso to the dollar. I think the lowest we'll see it go is probably like 54. Maybe there might be years in the future where it goes lower or whatever, but I don't see that happening right now. I think for at least a couple years, we're going to see us in this place where we're in a good spot with the 57 to 1 or higher. I honestly believe that's what's going to happen. Could I be wrong? Yes, I could. But I think with the cola raises and stuff like that, where we're ahead of the game a little bit, even if we take a little bit of a hit, at least we'll be on par with the U.S. and what's going on back there. We'll be in a good spot. You know, and you guys can leave your comments down there, and that'd be great, because I want to hear what you guys have to say and your thoughts on this. But I do think if you can pay off your mortgage over here, if you have a mortgage through your girlfriend or whatever, or you have some debt in the Philippines, now's the time to sell your stuff back in the U.S. or to sell off some stocks that you've made some profits on, and just get rid of that, liquidate it, and pay off this stuff, and then just start from scratch again. Start saving money again or whatever. But do not, whatever you do, get rid of your emergency money. And remember, these are just my thoughts. You know, I'm not a professional on this or whatever, but I do study and I do read this stuff a lot. And nobody can predict the future, obviously. So, I mean, that's just my thoughts on this. But anyway, guys, God bless. Take care. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And remember, don't get greedy. Now might be the time to start thinking about cashing out some of those dollars and take that money. And then at least you've got some serious gains, because it's the highest it's ever been. Keep that in mind, guys. Don't get greedy. God bless, guys. Take care.